Welcome to the third video of my UE4 demo project. This is the Soul Cave Marketplace level that I have been enhancing. Here we have the door from the previous video, but with further refinements, there is no longer any delay between the animation finishing for opening and closing, if it should close because you're no longer in the volume. And the door continues to be uninterruptible. You don't trigger it to animate in any funny ways by entering and exiting the trigger box. And the door will also open as soon as it finishes closing if you are inside of the trigger box. So that's the enhancements to this already existing feature. Next we have the swords and staff that swing past you, but now with a door that closes behind them. And when you step up to the door, it opens automatically upon your approach, and the path forward is then illuminated. And this door, unlike the first door, is on a timer, so whenever you approach it, it will remain open for a fixed duration of time, and then automatically close independent of your actions, unlike the first door. And further plans are additional lighting effects as you continue down the illustrated path. Next, we're going to go over the blueprint scripting that has been used so far. So here's a quick flyover of the level with the multi-part door, the simple door, the staffs and weapons, and then the spotlights for the illuminated lights. So first up, we have the door blueprint, which has received further enhancements. It's been simplified. There is no longer any sort of delay, not anything. So it's just a simple check on you entering the door. If you're in the door, we make sure we set that you're in the trigger box. We check if the door is open. If it's not open, we open it, and we make sure you are in the trigger box when you open it, which is mildly redundant but still useful because you can also step out of the trigger box and change that, and then that'll trigger for the closing of the door. There is no longer any stuff over here. We check to make sure no animation is in progress, as signified by the door busy bool. This is a series of linked timelines. They could alternately be handled by having multiple tracks on one timeline. All of these are a simple lerp and changing in location. And then once the last of them finish, we set the door to open, and we release the door busy, so it's no longer a busy door. And then we check if we need to close the door, which is located down here. We need to make sure that the door is open, first of all, and then we need to make sure the player is not in the trigger box, because if they're not in the trigger box, the door should not be open, and thus we call the door close command. The close door command, we make sure the door isn't busy. We set the door to busy if it's free, and then we do one track to handle all of them sliding closed at the exact same time, with that part chained together. And then once that timeline is finished, the door is set to no longer open, so that's false. The door is no longer busy, and then we call to check to see if we need to open the door. Open the door is the same logic as closing the door check. We check if the door is open. If it is open, but if it's closed, we then check if you're in the trigger box, and if you're in the trigger box and the door is closed, we then open the door. So that's some significant simplification and refinement of the trigger box for the sliding initial doors. Next up, we have the trigger box, which is responsible for triggering all manner of things. So this is the one that'll check if it's been run already, because we only want to run this once. And then we set it has run, and then we trigger the staff and both of the swords to active, and then we call move staff to make sure that their movement is refreshed immediately. And then we close the swinging door, which is one of the new features. The swords and the staffs, those are the same as last time. They are handled via a set of features where you can set how long they should run, what port art they should start at, and then we call the functions. This will trigger it automatically when the thing starts, but we've added a check so we check if it's active, and then we run it, and then the move staff is over here. We set the target to the staff mover, which is this own object, and then we get the duration, the self as the target again, and then we call the timeline over here, staff mover. We set the alpha, and then we get the track, which you've selected via track object reference. You get the length, and then you do linear interpretation, lerp, for getting the location and rotation along the distance along the spine, and then you get set the actor's location. This is identical code-wise for the staff, but the staff has a different model. It's the staff model instead. The staff and the swords, they both run off of a preset duration. You can determine the tracks where it starts along the track, and then you select the track that it should use. The tracks are very simple. They are just a spline with no scripting of any sort. And then next up, we have the swinging doors. These are also very straightforward. They're a set of 2 swinging doors, which have been offset, so we need to rotate around their root because the doors are offset to change their rotation point. And this is very straightforward. When the thing starts, we call the closed door. We wait 1 second, and then we simply rotate the roots to close the door. And then whenever the player enters the trigger box, we run the timeline. And the timeline is slightly different in that it is a 3-second duration, which has only 1 second of active time, and then it reverses. So we rotate the doors, it waits 2 seconds, it completes a minor delay, and then it reverses from the end to close the door automatically after about 4 seconds of activity. Next up, we have the lights, which are right on over here. This is the sequence of the 4 spotlights, which are triggered when the door opens and hits their trigger box. These are very straightforward. It's just a case of the collision of the door hits the trigger box, we have a half-second delay, and then we turn on all the lights by setting their intensity with a half-second delay between turning on all the sequential lights. As previously mentioned, further plans are adding additional lighting effects that trigger as you walk down the illuminated path and up towards the central statue. That ends this 3rd video in my work in progress UE4 project. There will be further videos made as progress continues. That's all for now. Have a great day.